Aloha everyone, I'm Aaron, and this is the Brass Monkey Tropical Hideaway. A few years ago, I built a tiki bar in my basement. Not a metaphor, an actual physical bar, tucked down in my basement where nobody sees it unless they know to look for the stairs. It's built around many items we've collected over the years, from a real vintage banana shipping crate, the kind that actually hauled fruit across oceans decades ago. Around it, I've collected carved tikis, nearly 100 mugs, and many authentic Japanese glass fishing floats. The kind of stuff that takes years of thrifting and research to find, not a weekend at a big box store. If you've landed here from a thumbnail or a comment or someone sent you a link, welcome. Before I get into anything else, I want to take a few minutes and explain what this channel actually is and who's talking to you. I think that matters more than diving straight into another episode. I've spent the better part of 30 years as a television news photojournalist. That job taught me something that shapes everything I do on this channel. Facts and sources matter. I try to verify what I present as history, real newspapers, real archives, real people who were there. I won't pretend I always get that right. I've used AI tools to help with research and scripting, and I've caught mistakes in my own process before they went out, and at least once after they already had. When that happens, I'll own it and fix it. That's the standard I'm holding myself to. Not perfection, but honesty about the work. There's another layer to this too. Tiki history is genuinely hard to pin down. A lot of it was never seriously archived. For decades, nobody thought a tiki bar's matchbooks or menus or photographs were worth saving, until people like Sven Kirsten started treating it as real cultural history worth documenting. So a lot of what's out there is scattered. Old newspaper clippings, secondhand memories, estate sale photos with no context. And on top of that, tiki itself was never built on strict truth to begin with. The guy most credited with inventing tiki as we know it, Don Beach, built his bar out of stories he made up to go with objects he'd collected. So sometimes I'm not just researching facts, I'm untangling which parts were always meant to be legend in the first place. None of that is an excuse for getting something wrong. A fabricated quote from a made-up bartender is a different problem than a hazy detail from 1962, and I want to be clear about that difference when it comes up. Here's the crazy part, though. The name of this place doesn't actually come from tiki tradition at all. Years ago, my wife and I took a trip where we found this brass monkey figure hanging from the rafters that had us talking and smiling about it for days. We also stumbled upon the very old banana crate. That trip and those two objects became sentimental to us, souvenirs from a trip we still talk about. When it came time to name our basement tiki bar, the Brass Monkey was our choice. That's where it came from. Not a deep dive into tiki iconography. Memories of an amazing trip. A while back, I actually reached out to two people who basically built modern tiki scholarship, Sven Kirsten, author of The Book of Tiki, and Jeff Beachbum Berry, author of Sippin' Safari and Potions of the Caribbean, who spent decades tracking down lost tiki cocktail recipes that the original bar owners had deliberately kept secret. I asked if I could cite their research on this channel. Both said yes. Sven also gave me some honest feedback on the name itself, pointed out that Brass Monkey isn't actually rooted in real tiki tradition. He's right. But the name has a personal story behind it that matters to me, and I decided to keep it. Here's the thing about tiki culture. It's never been about strict authenticity. Don the Beachcomber, the guy who basically invented the tiki bar in 1933, built his entire empire on stories he made up to go with objects he'd collected. That's the tradition. Paradise built out of driftwood and borrowed myth. So I did the same thing. I gave my brass monkey a legend, a sailor's souvenir, carried home from some port that doesn't show up on any map, still in print, tucked into the bottom of a banana crate, and forgotten until it found its way down into this basement. It's not history. I made it up. But it's honest about being made up. And I think that's what separates good tiki lore from bad information. That's really what this whole channel is built on. I dig into real tiki history, the bars, the people, the mid-century supper clubs, the good stories, and the sometimes tragic ones. And I do the actual research, old newspapers, primary sources, people who were there. And alongside that, I share my own space, my tiki travels, the builds, the thrifting hunts, the drinks I'm mixing, and the mistakes I've made putting this bar together, one piece at a time. So that's the name, Brass Monkey Tropical Hideaway. Not because of some myth, but because of a little brass figure sitting on a shelf in my basement, and a story I told about him because that's what you do in a place like this. Thanks for being here. Pull up a stool. There's always room for one more.